Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Wanderer, staring at the vast darkness of space ahead. 300 years had passed since humans last traveled beyond their home solar system. 300 years since the galaxy had seen a human ship among the stars. "Captain, we're picking up alien chatter on the long-range sensors," said Lieutenant Amy Foster from her position at the tactical station. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel, adjusting frequencies and filters. "It's coming from the Proxima sector." Jake nodded slowly. This was what they had trained for during the long journey from Earth. The Wanderer was humanity's first exploration ship to venture into alien space since the Great Silence. Every person on board knew they were making history. "What are they saying?" Jake asked, moving closer to Amy's station. Amy listened to her earpiece, her face growing serious. "It's strange, Captain. They're talking about humans like we're some kind of old story. One of them just said that humans are just myths that parents tell their children." Dr. Kevin Lane looked up from his medical station. "Myths? But we were trading with dozens of alien species before the silence. How could they forget us so quickly?" 3 centuries is a long time," said Lisa Park, the ship's engineer. She wiped grease from her hands with a cloth. "Maybe they want to forget us." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Before leaving Earth, they had prepared for many possibilities. They expected the aliens might be hostile or suspicious, but they never expected to be forgotten completely. "Amy, can you get more details about what they're saying?" Jake asked. Amy nodded and continued listening. After a few minutes, she turned back to the captain. "Captain, you need to hear this. They're talking about the old human territories. They've divided them up among themselves. The Zephyrian Empire took most of our former colonies. The Crystalline Collective claimed our mining worlds. The Nexari Hive absorbed our research stations. They carved up our space like we never existed," Kevin said, his voice angry. "No," Amy said, still listening to the alien transmissions. "It's worse than that. They know we existed, but they tell stories about us that aren't true. They say we were savage warriors who destroyed ourselves in endless wars. They say we were too primitive to survive in space." Jake clenched his fists. The truth was very different. Humans had been peaceful traders and explorers. They had helped many species develop new technologies. They had prevented wars and saved lives across the galaxy. But something had happened 300 years ago that forced humanity to retreat to Earth. "Captain," Lisa called from her engineering station, "I'm detecting a large ship approaching. It's not human." Jake moved to the main view screen. "Put it on screen." The image showed a massive vessel, easily 10 times the size of the Wanderer. Its hull was covered in strange symbols and weapon ports. It looked like a ship built for war, not exploration. "It's a Zephyrian slave ship," Amy said, checking her database. "Class 7 transport. They use these ships to move captured prisoners from conquered worlds." "Prisoners?" Kevin asked. "Slaves," Amy corrected. "The Zephyrians don't take prisoners. They take slaves." Jake watched the alien ship move through space. It was heading toward a nearby star system. "Amy, scan that ship. How many life forms are on board?" Amy worked at her controls for several minutes. "Captain, I'm reading over 3,000 life forms. Most of them are in the cargo holds. Their life signs are weak." 3,000 slaves, Jake whispered. "Captain, we have our orders," Lisa reminded him. "We're supposed to observe and report. Back to Earth. We're not supposed to interfere." Jake knew Lisa was right. Admiral Cross had been very clear about their mission. The Wanderer was a scout ship, not a warship. They were supposed to gather information and return to Earth without being detected. But 3,000 beings were suffering in the cargo holds of that ship. They were probably from a world that the Zephyrians had recently conquered. Their families were dead or enslaved. Their civilization was destroyed. Kevin, what's our combat capability? Jake asked. Captain, we're not built for fighting, Kevin said. We have defensive shields and basic weapons. That slave ship probably has escort fighters. Actually, Lisa said, checking her engineering displays, that ship is traveling alone. No escorts. And Captain, our weapons might be basic by human standards, but they're 300 years more advanced than anything the aliens have. Jake thought about the decision he was about to make. If they attacked the slave ship, they would reveal humanity's return to the galaxy. There would be no going back to the quiet observation mission. But if they did nothing, 3,000 innocent beings would live and die as slaves. Amy, can you disable that ship without destroying it? Jake asked. Amy smiled for the first time since they had detected the alien chatter. Captain, I can shut down every system on that ship in under 60 seconds. Their shields and weapons are so old, they won't even know what hit them. Do it? Jake said. The Wanderer moved toward the slave ship like a ghost in the darkness. Aliens on board, the transport had no idea they were being hunted. Their sensors couldn't detect the advanced human ship. Amy targeted the slave ship's main power systems. She fired a focused energy beam that passed through the alien shields like they weren't there. The massive transport ship went dark in seconds. Kevin, prepare the medical bay for refugees, Jake ordered. Lisa, get ready to dock with that ship. We're going to free every slave on board. Captain, Amy said, once we do this, the galaxy will know that humans are back. Jake looked at the dead slave ship floating in space. 3,000 lives hung in the balance. 3,000 beings who deserved freedom. Then let them know, Jake said. Let them know that the legends are real. Let them know that humans have returned. And let them know that we remember what they did to us. The Wanderer moved closer to the slave ship, ready to begin humanity's return to the galaxy. The age of myths and legends was about to end. The rescued aliens filled the Wanderer's cargo bay. They came from 12 different species, all captured from worlds that the Zephyrian Empire had recently conquered. Dr. Kevin Lang moved among them, treating injuries and offering what comfort he could. Captain, Kevin called over the comm system, you need to see this. Jake Morrison left the bridge and made his way to the medical bay. He found Kevin examining blood samples under a microscope, his face grim. What did you find? Jake asked. Kevin looked up from the microscope. These aliens have been changed, Captain. Their DNA shows signs of deliberate modification. Someone has been breeding them like animals. Jake felt his stomach turn. Breeding them for what? To make them more obedient, less likely to fight back. Look at this. Kevin showed Jake a genetic chart on his computer screen. This species used to be warriors. Their historical records show they were fierce fighters. But these survivors have had their aggressive genes suppressed. The Zephyrians are creating perfect slaves, Jake said quietly. It gets worse, Kevin continued. The modifications are being passed down to their children. Each generation becomes more compliant than the last. In 50 years, these species won't even remember that they were once free. Jake walked among the rescued aliens. Most of them sat quietly, staring at the floor. Even though they had been freed, they showed no joy, no relief. The fight had been read out of them. Captain, Amy Foster's voice came through the comm system. I need you on the bridge. We've intercepted some very interesting communications. Jake made his way back to the bridge, where Amy was listening to alien transmissions with a look of horror on her face. What is it? Jake asked. I've been monitoring Zephyrian military channels, Amy said. They're planning something called the Final Cleansing for 3 star systems. They're going to kill every living thing on 15 worlds. Why? Jake asked. The worlds have valuable minerals that the Zephyrians want, but the native species are too difficult to control. So they've decided to just wipe them out and start over with more obedient slaves from other worlds. Jake looked at the tactical display showing the 3 star systems. Each one contained billions of lives. Men, women, children, entire civilizations that would be destroyed just for their resources. When does it start? Jake asked. In 6 days? Amy said. They're assembling a battle fleet at the edge of the first system. 40 ships, including planet killers. Jake sat down in his captain's chair. The weight of the decision before him was enormous. They were just one ship against an entire fleet. But they were also the only ones who could stop this genocide. Lisa, Jake called to the engineering station. What can you do to improve our fighting capability? Lisa Park looked up from her controls. Captain, I've been thinking about this since we rescued the slaves. Our weapons are much more advanced than anything the Zephyrians have. But we're still just one ship. What do you need? Jake asked. Time, Lisa said. Give me 48 hours, and I can modify our weapons systems. I can also upgrade our shields and engines. The Zephyrians won't know what hit them. Jake nodded. Do it. Amy, plot a course for the first target system. Kevin, how are our refugees? They're stable, Kevin reported. But Captain, some of them are starting to talk. They're telling me things about the Zephyrian Empire that you need to hear. Such as, the Empire isn't just conquering random worlds. They're following a specific plan. They're targeting species that were once allied with humanity. They're finishing what they started 300 years ago. Jake felt a chill run through him. What do you mean? Kevin brought up a star map on the main screen. Look at this. Every species that the Zephyrians have conquered in the past 50 years was once part of the human alliance. The Altarians, the Centauri Republic, the Vegan Confederacy. All of them were our friends. They're erasing our legacy, Amy said quietly. Not just our legacy, Kevin said. Our allies. Anyone who might remember the truth about humanity. Anyone who might help us if we ever returned. Jake stared at the star map. The pattern was clear. The Zephyrians, along with their allies, were systematically destroying every trace of humanity's former presence in the galaxy. Captain, Lisa called from engineering, I'm done with the first phase of modifications. You should see what our weapons can do now. Jake looked at the tactical display. Their single ship now showed weapon capabilities that rivaled a small battle. Fleet, how? Jake asked. I've been studying the technology we captured from the slave ship, Lisa explained. The Zephyrians are still using energy weapons and kinetic projectiles. But we've developed quantum disruptors and gravity manipulators. We can tear their ships apart at the molecular level. And our defenses? Jake asked. Our shields can now bend space around the ship. Their weapons will pass right through us like we're not there. Jake smiled grimly. Then let's go stop a genocide. The Wanderer changed course toward the first target system. As they traveled, Jake received a message from Earth. Admiral Cross appeared on the communication screen. Captain Morrison, the Admiral said, we've been monitoring your activities. You've done good work rescuing those slaves. Admiral, the situation is worse than we thought, Jake said. He quickly briefed Cross on the planned genocide and the systematic destruction of humanity's former allies. I know, Cross said. We've been watching from other sectors. Captain, it's time you learned the truth. The Wanderer isn't alone out there. Jake was shocked. Sir? We have 12 other ships operating in different parts of the galaxy. Each one is making similar discoveries. The aliens didn't just forget about humanity. They actively worked to erase us from history. How many of our people are out there? Jake asked. Enough, Cross said. And Captain, You have permission to engage the Zephyrian fleet. It's time to remind the galaxy that humanity is back." Jake looked around at his crew. Amy was preparing weapons systems. Lisa was fine-tuning the ship's new capabilities. Kevin was caring for the refugees they had saved. "Admiral," Jake said, "they're about to learn that some myths are real." The Wanderer dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the first target system. Ahead of them, the Zephyrian battle fleet was forming up for the attack on the innocent worlds. "Captain," Amy said, "I count 42 enemy ships. They haven't detected us yet." "Good," Jake said. "Lisa, are you ready?" "All systems green, Captain. Let's show them what 300 years of human advancement can do." "Amy, open a channel to the enemy." "Fleet, channel open, Captain." Jake stood up from his chair. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Human Defense Fleet. You are ordered to withdraw from this system immediately. You have 30 seconds to comply." The response from the Zephyrian fleet was immediate. 42 ships opened fire on the Wanderers. The human ship didn't even feel the impact. The energy beams passed through their shields, like light through glass. "Amy," Jake said calmly, "return fire." What happened next would be remembered throughout the galaxy for generations. The Wanderer fired a single quantum disruptor burst that tore through the enemy fleet like a blade through paper. 21 ships simply came apart at the atomic level. "Second volley," Jake ordered. The remaining Zephyrian ships tried to flee, but the Wanderer's gravity manipulators held them in place. Another quantum burst destroyed 15 more ships. "Captain," Amy said, 6 ships are trying to surrender." Jake looked at the tactical display. 6 ships out of 42. The battle had lasted less than 5 minutes. "Let them go," Jake said. "Let them tell the galaxy what they saw here today." As the surviving ships fled, Jake opened a channel to the worlds below. "This is Captain Jake Morrison. Your skies are clear. The threat has been eliminated. Humanity has returned to the galaxy, and we remember our friends." The response from the planets was overwhelming. Voices in dozens of languages filled the communication channels, all expressing the same thing: hope. For the first time in 300 years, the galaxy knew that humanity was back. And they were no longer myths or legends. They were real, and they were angry. News of the destroyed Zephyrian fleet spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Captain Jake Morrison watched the alien communication networks from the bridge of the Wanderer, amazed at how quickly panic was spreading. "Captain," Amy Foster reported, "from her tactical station, we're intercepting emergency transmissions from all 3 major powers. The Zephyrian Empire thinks the Crystalline Collective destroyed their fleet. The Collective thinks it was the Nexari Hive. The Hive thinks it was the Zephyrians testing a new weapon." Jake almost smiled. The 3 alien empires were so busy suspecting each other that they couldn't imagine the truth. Humanity had returned with technology that made their weapons look like toys. "Sir," Lisa Park called from engineering, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. It's Admiral Cross." Jake moved to the communication station. Admiral Cross appeared on the screen, and he wasn't alone. Behind him stood 12 other ship captains, all human. "Captain Morrison," Cross said, "I'd like you to meet your colleagues. Captain Dan White of the Explorer, Captain Sue Black of the Defender, Captain Mark Johnson of the Guardian, and 9 others. You've all been operating in different sectors of the galaxy." Jake stared at the screen. "Admiral, you mean there are 13 human ships out here?" "That's correct," Cross said. "And each of you has been making similar discoveries. Captain White, tell Morrison what you found in the Outer Rim." A middle-aged man with gray hair stepped forward. "Captain Morrison, we investigated the destruction of the Altarian worlds. The official records say they destroyed themselves in a civil war, but we found evidence of orbital bombardment. Someone attacked them from space. Captain Black, Cross continued. What about the Centauri Republic? A woman with short brown hair spoke up. Same story, sir. The records claim they died from a plague, but we found weapon signatures in the debris fields. They were murdered. Jake felt a cold anger building in his chest. Admiral, are you telling me that our former allies were systematically exterminated? That's exactly what I'm telling you, Cross said. 300 years ago, the galaxy's major powers didn't just drive humanity back to Earth. They spent the next century hunting down and destroying every species that had been friendly to us. Dr. Kevin Lane looked up from his medical station. That explains the genetic modifications we found in the slaves. They're not just creating obedient workers. They're erasing the genetic memory of resistance. Kevin's right, Cross said. The aliens have been reshaping the galaxy according to their vision. A vision where humans never existed and never will exist again. Amy turned from her station. Admiral, we're tracking massive fleet movements. The three powers are mobilizing against each other. They think one of them has developed a super weapon. Perfect, Cross said. Let them weaken each other. But Captain Morrison, your job isn't done. We need to know exactly who was responsible for the original genocide attempt. Jake nodded. What do you need, sir? Intelligence. We need to know which alien leaders ordered the attack on humanity, which corporations profited from our destruction, which military officers carried out the extermination campaigns. Kevin, Jake said, start analyzing the rescued slaves' testimonies. Look for patterns, names, locations. Already on it, Captain, Kevin replied, and I'm finding some disturbing connections. Many of the same family names that appear in the historical records are still in power today. Lisa looked up from her engineering station. Captain, I'm detecting another ship approaching. It's not showing any identification. Jake tensed. Hostile? No, sir, Lisa said. It's transmitting human identification codes. It's the Explorer. Captain White's ship dropped out of hyperspace near the Wanderer. Jake watched as the two ships moved together, the first time human vessels had flown side by side in alien space for 3 centuries. Captain Morrison, White's voice came through the comm system. We need to talk in person. I have something to show you that will change everything. An hour later, Jake found himself in the Explorer's briefing room, looking at documents that made his blood run cold. Captain White spread out star charts and historical records across the table. We recovered these from a destroyed Zephyrian command base, White explained. They contain the original plans for humanity's elimination. Jake, read through the documents. The plan was called Operation Silent Sky. It detailed how the 3 major powers would coordinate their attacks on human colonies, making it look like humans had destroyed themselves through internal conflicts. Look at this, White said, pointing to a list of names. These are the alien leaders who signed the order. Most of them are dead now, but their descendants are still in power. Jake recognized several names. General Vexstar of the Zephyrian Empire was the son of Admiral Vexstar, who had commanded the attack on the human colony of New Chicago. Corporate Director Silana of the Crystalline Collective was the daughter of the Silana who had profited from selling human slaves. They're not just continuing their ancestors' work, Jake said. They're finishing it. That's right, White said. And Captain Morrison, there's something else. The operation isn't over. They're planning a final phase. Jake looked up from the documents. What kind of final phase? White activated a holographic display. They call it the Last Echo. They've discovered that humans survived on Earth. They're planning to finish what they started 300 years ago. The hologram showed the solar system, with Earth highlighted in red. Attack vectors were drawn from 3 directions, showing how the alien fleets would approach. When? Jake asked. 6 months, White said. They're building a coalition fleet. 500 ships from all three powers. They want to make sure that this time, humanity is completely wiped out. Jake stood up, his hands clenched into fists. Then we stopped them. How? White asked. We have 13 ships. They have 500. We have something they don't, Jake said. We have the truth. And we have 300 years of suppressed anger. Jake activated his communication system. Admiral Cross, this is Captain Morrison. We need to talk to every human ship in the galaxy. It's time to coordinate our response. Within hours, all 13 human ships were in communication. The captains shared their intelligence, their discoveries, and their plans. The picture that emerged was clear. The alien powers had spent 3 centuries systematically destroying humanity's legacy and preparing for humanity's final extinction. Captains, Admiral Cross said, the time for reconnaissance is over. The time for action has begun. You are authorized to engage enemy forces with extreme prejudice. What about rules of engagement? Asked Captain Johnson. Simple, Cross replied. Any alien military force that has participated in genocide operations is a legitimate target. Any alien government that has ordered the extermination of peaceful species is a legitimate target. Any alien corporation that has profited from slave labor is a legitimate target. Jake looked at the faces of his fellow captains on the communication screen. All of them showed the same expression, determination mixed with righteous anger. Admiral, Jake said, what about the innocent aliens? The ones who had nothing to do with the genocide? We protect them, Cross said. Just like you protected those slaves you rescued. But Captain Morrison, make no mistake about this. We are at war, a war that started 300 years ago, and we're going to finish it. The communication ended, leaving Jake alone with his thoughts. Around him, the Wanderer hummed with activity as his crew prepared for battle. They had revealed themselves to the galaxy by saving lives. Now they would reveal their true power by taking them. Captain, Amy called from the tactical station, we're receiving a transmission from one of the worlds we saved. They want to thank us. Jake moved to the communication station. On the screen appeared an alien face, one of the species that had been scheduled for extermination. Captain Morrison, the alien said, we know you can hear us. We know you are human. We want you to know that we remember. We remember the stories our grandparents told us about the humans who helped us long ago. We remember the truth. Thank you, Jake said simply. Captain, the alien continued, we have something for you. Information about the ones who tried to destroy us. We know where they are. We know their weaknesses. We want to help you make them pay. Jake smiled grimly. The galaxy's oppressed species were ready to join the fight. Humanity would not stand alone against the empires that had tried to erase them from existence. Send us everything you have. Jake said, it's time for the reckoning to begin. Across the galaxy, 13 human ships prepared for war. But they were no longer alone. The species that had been crushed under the weight of 3 centuries of oppression were ready to rise up and fight alongside the legends that had returned to save them. The age of the great empires was coming to an end. The age of humanity's revenge was about to begin. The 13 human ships met in the empty space between star systems, far from alien sensors and communication networks. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the Wanderer's conference room, looking at the holographic images of his fellow captains. For the first time in 3 centuries, humanity's space fleet was united. Captains, Admiral Cross said from Earth, what you're about to undertake will change the galaxy forever. Operation Reckoning is not just about revenge. It's about justice for every species that has suffered under the alien empires. Captain White of the Explorer leaned forward. Admiral, we've identified the primary targets. The Zephyrian fortress world of Callus Prime, The Crystalline Collective's command center at Nexus Station, and the Nexary Hive's breeding worlds in the Outer Spiral. What about their fleets? Asked Captain Sue Black of the Defender. That's where it gets interesting, Jake said. Our intelligence sources tell us that the three empires are still mobilizing against each other. They're convinced that one of them has developed a superweapon. They're positioning their fleets for a three-way war. Lisa Park appeared on the communication screen from her engineering station. Captains, I've been working with the engineering teams from all our ships. We've developed something that will give us a decisive advantage. What is it? Asked Captain Johnson. Reality anchors, Lisa explained. Devices that can lock down entire star systems. Any ship caught in an anchor field cannot use faster-than-light travel, hyperspace communication, or most energy weapons. They become sitting ducks. Jake smiled. How many can we deploy? Each ship can carry 12 anchors, Lisa said. That's enough to lock down the three most important systems in alien space simultaneously. Admiral Cross nodded approvingly. Excellent work. Captains, you have your orders. Strike hard, strike fast, and make sure the galaxy knows that humanity has returned. The communication ended, leaving the human captains to finalize their plans. Jake looked at his crew, all of whom had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might never return to Earth. Amy, Jake said, plot a course for Callus. Prime, Lisa, prepare our reality anchors. Kevin, monitor all communication channels. I want to know the moment the aliens realize what's happening. The Wanderer and 4 other ships broke away from the group, heading for the Zephyrian stronghold. The remaining ships split up to target the other alien power centers. Callus Prime was a massive world, HEAVI, fortified and protected by orbital defense stations. It was the administrative center of the Zephyrian Empire, home to billions of aliens, and the command structure that had ordered the genocide of countless species. Captain, Amy reported, we're approaching the edge of the Callus system. I'm detecting over 300 ships in the area. Military? Jake asked. Mixed, Amy said. About half are warships. The rest are transports and civilian vessels. But, Captain, they're all armed. Even the civilian ships have weapons. Jake thought about the innocent beings on those ships. But then he remembered the slaves they had rescued, the genetic modifications, the planned extermination of entire species. Lisa, deploy the reality anchors, Jake ordered. The 5 human ships moved to predetermined positions around the Callus system. 12 reality anchors were deployed from each ship, creating an invisible web that locked down the entire star system. Anchors active, Lisa reported. Nothing is getting in or out of this system. Jake opened a communication channel to the entire system. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Human Defense Fleet. To all non-military vessels in this system, you have 10 minutes to power down your weapons and prepare for inspection. Any ship that does not comply will be destroyed. The response was immediate. The Zephyrian fleet moved to attack positions, assuming that the human ships were part of some elaborate alien trick. Captain, Amy said, they're not taking us seriously. The enemy fleet is moving to engage. Jake watched as nearly 200 Zephyrian warships formed up in battle formation. They were confident, experienced, and completely unprepared for what was about to happen. Amy, target their command ship. Full power. The Wanderer fired a single quantum disruptor burst. The massive Zephyrian dreadnought, over 2 kilometers long, simply came apart like a house of cards. The explosion lit up the space around Callus, prime like a new sun. Second target, Jake ordered. Another burst destroyed a battle cruiser, then another. The human ships moved through the Zephyrian fleet like sharks through a school of fish, destroying everything in their path. Captain, Kevin called from his station, we're receiving surrender signals from over 50 ships. Accept their surrender, Jake said, but continue targeting any ship that shows hostile intent. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, the Zephyrian fleet was either destroyed or surrendering. The orbital defense stations around Callus Prime were silent, their weapons unable to function within the reality anchor field. Jake opened a channel to the planet below. "This is Captain Jake Morrison. Your fleet has been destroyed. Your defenses are offline. I am broadcasting this message to every world in the galaxy." He paused, knowing that his next words would be heard by billions of beings across the galaxy. 300 years ago, the Zephyrian Empire, along with the Crystalline Collective and the Nexari Hive, launched a coordinated attack on humanity. They destroyed our colonies, murdered our allies, and tried to erase us from the galaxy. They failed. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. Amy was monitoring the communication channels, watching as the news of the battle spread across the galaxy. Lisa was preparing the ship's systems for the next phase of the operation. Kevin was treating wounded prisoners from the destroyed ships. "We are not myths," Jake continued. "We are not legends. We are human beings, and we have returned to collect on a debt that is 300 years overdue." The communication ended, but Jake knew that the real message had been sent. The alien empires now knew that humanity was back, and they were no longer the helpless victims they had been centuries ago. "Captain," Amy said, "we're receiving reports from the other human ships. Captain White has successfully taken Nexus Station. Captain Black has destroyed the Nexari breeding facilities. All primary targets have been eliminated." Jake nodded. "Amy, word from the alien fleets?" "They're in complete chaos," Amy reported. "The Zephyrian Empire is demanding an explanation from the Crystalline Collective. The Collective is accusing the Nexari Hive of developing secret weapons. The Hive is threatening to attack both of them." "Good," Jake said. "Let them fight each other. Kevin, what's the status of our prisoners?" "Most of them are in shock," Kevin reported. "They can't believe that humans are real. Some of them are asking if we're going to execute them." Jake thought about that. The aliens had committed genocide, enslaved entire species, and were planning to finish the job by destroying Earth. By any measure, they deserved to die. But Jake remembered something his grandfather had told him before he left Earth. The measure of a civilization is not how it treats its enemies in victory, but how it treats its enemies in defeat. "Tell them they will be treated according to their crimes," Jake said. "Those who ordered genocide will face justice. Those who simply followed orders will be given a chance to help rebuild what they destroyed." "Captain," Lisa called from engineering, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Cross." The Admiral appeared on the main screen, and Jake could see the satisfaction in his eyes. "Captain Morrison, excellent work. All primary targets have been eliminated. The alien empires are in disarray." "What's our next move, Admiral?" Jake asked. "Phase 2, Cross said. "We've received intelligence about the location of the Coalition fleet that's being assembled to attack Earth. It's gathering at the neutral zone between the three empires." Jake felt his blood run cold. "How many ships, Admiral?" 437, Cross said. "From all three empires. They're calling it the Final Solution Fleet." "When do they plan to launch the attack?" Jake asked. "In 3 weeks, Cross said. "Captain Morrison, I need you and the other ships to intercept that fleet before it reaches Earth. This is it. This is the final battle." Jake looked at his crew. They had already accomplished more than anyone had thought possible. They had revealed humanity's return to the galaxy, destroyed the alien empire's primary military bases, and proven that human technology was far superior to anything the aliens possessed. But now they faced their greatest challenge: 437 ships against 13. The odds were impossible. "Admiral," Jake said, We'll need help." "You'll have it," Cross said. "The species you've liberated are sending ships to join you. The former human allies who survived the genocide are coming out of hiding. And Captain Morrison, you'll have one more advantage." "What's that, sir?" Cross smiled grimly. "You'll be fighting for the survival of humanity itself. There's no more powerful motivation than that." The communication ended, leaving Jake alone with his thoughts. In 3 weeks, the fate of humanity would be decided in a battle that would determine the future of the galaxy. But as he looked at his crew, at the rescued slaves who had volunteered to help, at the communication channels filled with messages of support from oppressed species across the galaxy, Jake realized something important. Humanity was no longer alone. The legends had returned, and they had brought hope with them.